The Prime Minister walked out of Labor's national conference this weekend a winner, having secured support for AUKUS in the party platform and negated internal friction over Stage 3 tax cuts and the position on Palestine. As the conference drew to a close, I sat down with Anthony Albanese in Brisbane. Prime Minister, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you, Andrew.
So you've had a few wins lately, you know, Labor leader, Prime Minister, AUKUS at National Conference. Is the voice where it stops?
Look, we're determined to ensure that Australians take up the opportunity to advance reconciliation. If not now, when? We do need to recognise Indigenous Australians in our Constitution, and we need to do it in a way that respects the request that has been made by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to be listened to with an advisory body that will result in better outcomes. We know that when we listen to First Nations people, we will get better results. All right, I was struck by this line this morning in your speech. You said, we take this on not because it's convenient, but out of conviction. You're almost saying there you're the underdog, aren't you? Well, saying there it's a tough fight. Referendums are hard to win in this country. I think the figure's something like 8 out of 44 referendums have been successful. And referendums, of course, that have been successful have enjoyed bipartisan support. But we want to give Australians the opportunity to vote on this. This is something that was promised, Indigenous recognition, that it would be advanced under John Howard. We've been through successive governments. We've been through a decade of consultation. The Uluru Statement was way back in 2017. And if not now, when? Well, on the voice, I mean, you told Neil Mitchell during the week that you wouldn't seek to legislate it if it's not successful at referendum. But why not? I mean, if it fails at a referendum, that's maybe because people, they mightn't mind a voice, but they don't want it constitutionally enshrined. You see the distinction, and some Liberals might even cross the floor. Why not legislate it if it's so important? I think you have to respect the outcomes of a referendum. And Indigenous Australians themselves have asked for the enshrinement of a body in the Constitution. They've also, in the clause, the third clause, makes it very clear that Parliament will determine the composition, will determine the functions and procedures relating to the voice. So the primacy of Parliament is enshrined, but the fact that there must be a body is enshrined in the Constitution. I think very clearly that when you have a referendum, you have to respect the outcome. But I also think that your question draws out one of the great contradictions that we're seeing played out, which is that Peter Dutton and the Liberals say they support constitutional recognition. Well, tick, tick, same position. They say they support legislating the voice. Both sides are therefore saying that. We're saying if the referendum is passed, then there will be the legislation passed for the voice. The Liberals are saying that should happen as well, but without the referendum being passed. So the difference here, with all of the noise that is going on, is just simply whether a body that the Liberals say will make a difference, that the Liberals say is worthy of support, otherwise why would they be legislating it? It undermines some of the fear campaign that is there about the impact of the voice. So it's whether or not it's permanent. Isn't this what, if you fail, this could actually be the reason, because people go, well, I don't mind the sound of a voice, but shouldn't we see how it goes first? If you put in the Constitution it's permanent, that's it. No. You know, if the wrong people get on it, we've still got it. No, what's permanent is that there's a body. The composition is subject to the Parliament. That's very clear. And so there's no difference between the Liberals' position and ours on whether Parliament would determine the composition of the voice. The only difference is whether the body can be abolished with the stroke of a pen. And Indigenous Australians have waited a long time for constitutional recognition. They have asked for it in a form which enshrines the existence of a body
in the Constitution. I think it's a gracious invitation and one I'm very hopeful that Australians will accept.
All right, I might say the other distinction is Peter Dutton says regional voice is not a national voice.
No, the Liberal Party decision made it very clear in the caucus room and the document that went to that room that there would be a national voice.
What's your plan B for closing the gap if it fails?
We'll continue to, of course, always do what we can to close the gap. But I'm very focused on winning this referendum. This is important, and today we've got a call for action from the Labor Party to our membership to get out there and campaign. Australians will focus when the last few weeks, when they have to determine whether they write yes or no on their ballot papers. And if they say no, then of course more of the same will continue to exist. Now, we're meeting 4 out of 19 closing the gap targets. We have an 8-year life expectancy gap. We have a suicide rate that is twice as high for Indigenous compared with non-Indigenous Australians. So we need, in my view, to do something better. This is a generous offer that I sincerely hope is taken up. We have had support from every faith group in the country. Will be campaigning and saying yes to a voice. Every major sporting code, unions, businesses, people in civil society groups, not-for-profits will all be out there campaigning yes, and certainly the Labor Party membership, as well as people of goodwill like Julian Leesa. I pay tribute to his courage, Bridget Archer, other people from the minor parties as well as Liberal Party members out there campaigning as well. This should be something that is above politics, and when it's successful, people will look back, just like they look back now at the apology to the stolen generations. No one says that was a bad idea. No one says it had any downside. This is all upside. There are only winners from this, and the winners from this are the most disadvantaged group in Australian society, First Nations people.